Hello, my name is Scott Macleod. I work for Nautel's Customer Service Department, and I'll be demonstrating how to tune an ATU-HP. In my test setup here, I'm going to be using, of course, the ATU-HP. I'm going to be using a Vector LP transmitter as my RF power source, and an antenna simulator to simulate my antenna. Now, before we start tuning our ATU-HP, it's important to know what is our application and what's our operating frequency. There are three modes of operation for this ATU. One is DGPS, one is high power NDB, which is any NDB application above 500 watts, and low power NDB, which is a 500 watt application. This ATU is set up for DGPS application, so we'll be looking at the DGPS tables when the tables split. However, the tuning procedure is the exact same. So, now to start our tuning, the first thing is, what is our frequency? In our test setup, I'm using 500 kilohertz. I'm going to look at table 2-1 to determine what capacitor values I need. Now keep in mind 2-1, this table is in your ATU manual. There are three different tables in 2-1. There's A, B, and C. One is for DGPS, one is for high power NDB, and one is for low power NDB. Since we're using the DGPS application, we're using the DGPS table, which tells me the capacitors I need is 1750 puff and 430 picofarads. So I have the right two capacitors in here, so that is correct, and now I can start with my tuning. Now we're going to break the tuning up into three stages: the initial setting of the coils, and then the final settings of the coils, and tuning the R matcher. So the first step is to put an initial setting, an initial tap on these coils. Now we can do this by calculating what our capacity is and then determining what inductance we need to resonate with it, or if we don't know what our capacity is, then we can just randomly select a tap setting. So in my test, I'm just going to randomly select a tap setting, and I've decided to go with the series combination of taps in my inductance, so I can start tuning. So I've selected 215 microhenries to tap my loading coils, which you can find in table 2-6A in your ATU manual. The input is coming in on L1A tap 2, it's leaving on tap 9, going to tap 2 of the B coil, and leaving on tap 8. So the next step, or the first stage in our actual tuning, is going to be to actually select these taps so the L tuning is tuned. And to do that, we first have to put our RF wiring in what we call stage 1 tune setup mode. And to do that, I'm going to disconnect the red wire from here and disconnect the blue wire from here and connect the blue wire to terminal 5. So as you can see, I've reconfigured my RF wiring. I've disconnected my red cable from the terminal block. I've disconnected my blue wire from E1 on the capacitor bank and put it on position 5 of my terminal block. Now I'm going to set my ATU, make sure it's in local control so these buttons function. I'm going to put it in tune setup mode. And now I'm going to turn my transmitter on and get some power out of my transmitter. Now the transmitter I'm using is actually an NDB transmitter. So if you're going to use an NDB transmitter, or your system is an NDB system, you're going to want to remember to turn your modulation off. You want to do the tuning in CW mode only, and have your transmitter set to bypass so it doesn't automatically shut down during our tuning process. So I've got power minimized. I'm going to turn on, and what I'm going to do is slowly increase power from my transmitter. Now with a low power system, I'm going to try to get 20 or 25 watts out of it. If I start getting an SWR alarm before that, I'll reduce power. If you have a higher power system, then you can go up to maybe 100 watts before getting an alarm, an output network or an SWR alarm. But you certainly don't want to increase power above 100 watts. So I'm at 20 watts now, and I can see that my L tuning is increasing. So now I'm following the flow chart in the ATU manual, which is figure 2-6, and what I'm waiting for now is the L tuning to go to normal, which means it's tuned, to go to max limit, which means it cannot increase anymore, or to go to min limit. Now to help speed up the process, I'm going to actually press and hold the increase button while monitoring the light. You do not have to do this. This is just, it speeds up the motor. So I have an L tuning max limit and increase light on. So according to my flow chart in my manual, I have to turn my transmitter off and go to the next higher inductance tap settings in my coil. So I'll do that now. So I turned my transmitter off and I've retapped my loading coils. They're now tapped at 235 microhenries. And what I ended up doing is changing the tap on L1A, the output, from 9 to 10. So now I'm going to turn my transmitter back on. And once again, I'm just following the flow chart. Let's see what happens. And I still have an L tuning increase and max limit light on. So I'm going to have to turn my transmitter off and retap my coil to the next higher tap setting, which is 250 microhenries. So I've retapped my loading coils to 250 microhenries, and I'm going to turn my transmitter back on. I still say increase and max limit. So I'm going to turn my transmitter back off. Now I'm using this button here to turn my transmitter off and on because I have this serial connection. If you don't have this serial connection, you'll have to go to your transmitter to turn it off. Okay, so now I'm going to increase my inductance again, and we'll try it again. So I have my loading coils now tapped for 275 microhenries. Turn my transmitter on again. And it still says increase in max limit. So once again, I'm going to turn my transmitter off and retap. So I've retapped my loading coils for 320 microhenries. Now I'm going to turn back on. And I'm now getting a decrease light, so we'll give it a bit of time and let it decrease. I'm going to actually press the decrease button to speed it up. Alright, and the L has gone to normal. So now, according to our flow chart, our L tuning is done. And we'll proceed to stage 2 of our tuning. So stage 2 of our RF tuning is determining what our antenna resistance is. And to do that, I'm going to make sure the transmitter is off. And then I have to reconfigure my RF wiring for stage 2 of the tuning. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect my blue wire from here. My red wire will re-terminate here. My green wire then gets disconnected, and my blue wire goes to my matching transformer. So I've reconfigured my RF wiring. My blue cable now goes between position 4 on the terminal block to position 3 on my matching transformer. The red wire goes between position 9 on my matching transformer to positions 5 and 6 on the terminal block. The green wire is disconnected. Now I'm going to turn the transmitter on, and we're going to follow flowchart 2-8 in our ATU manual, which is labeled determining antenna resistance. So our next step in the flowchart is we're waiting for the L tuning to go to normal. If it doesn't go to normal and it goes to max limit or min limit, we're going to have to re-tap our loading coils again. So we're just going to sit and wait. I'm going to press the decrease button. The L tuning now says decrease, so I'm just going to manually speed it up a bit. Oh, I overshot it a bit. So increase, and we'll leave it. So it's pretty close to 2 now. We'll just let it fine tune in. And once that says normal, what we're going to do is look at what the R tuning is telling us to do. Okay, the L tuning now says normal. The R tuning says decrease. So according to the flow chart in our ATU manual 2-8, if it says decrease, it says we should turn the transmitter off and go to the next lower antenna resistance as per table 2-3 in our manual. In table 2-3, we are currently connected, the blue wire is in, the red wire is out, so we're connected at in on 3, out on 9, which is 18 ohms. So we're going to go down to 16 ohms, which is the blue wire on tap 5 and the output red wire on tap 2. And then we're going to try turning on again. So I've retapped my matching transformer for 16 ohms. I'm going to turn my transmitter back on. And once again, we're going through the flow chart. We're going to wait till the L tuning goes to normal. And it's showing normal. And my R tuning still says decrease. Now I'm just going to check what my forward and reflected power is. So my forward power is about 40 watts and my reflected is almost 0. So that's good. The tuning isn't correct yet, but I'm just saying I have enough power that I can actually do this part of the procedure. Okay, so it still says decrease. So I'm going to turn my transmitter off. And I have to redo it again. So I'm at 16 ohms now. Now I'm going to retap down to 12.5 ohms. So I've retapped my matching transformer for 12.5 ohms now. Turn the transmitter back on. And once again, following the flow chart. Okay, now my L tuning and R tuning both show normal. So from this, and let's see how much forward power I have. It dropped a bit, but it's still above 20 watts. We'll increase it up a bit. So I'm at 50 watts now. That just gives us a bit better resolution on our tuning. And my R tuning is showing decrease. So we're going to try one more tap setting down. That should probably do it. So we're at 12.5 ohms now. So we will go to 9. So I've retapped my matching transformer for 9 ohms. I'm going to turn my transmitter on. Wait for the power to come up. Okay, so the power is up and we are showing normal for L tuning and normal for R tuning. So stage 2 is to determine what our antenna system resistance is. And right now, since everything is normal, the matching transformer is properly set up to determine what our antenna system resistance is. And we are currently tapped for 9 ohms, so that means the antenna is 9 ohms. So the next step is to turn the transmitter off. We're going to reconfigure the RF wiring. And we have to determine the input and output taps we are actually going to use. Now, to determine the input and output taps, we have to do a little bit of math. And what we do is we take our manual and we look up a R match value, which is in table 2-4. And at 500 kilohertz, the R match value is 117 ohms. Now, to determine the ratio, the resistance ratio that we want this matching transformer set to, we divide 117.3 ohms, our R match value, by the antenna resistance, which is 9 ohms. So if we divide 117 by 9 ohms, we get 13.03, so basically 13. So a resistance ratio of 13. So if I look at table 2-5, to find my resistance ratio, the closest value to 13 is 12.25, and that's with an input wire on 5 and an output wire on 8. And when I reconfigure these wirings, the red wire is going to be my output wire, and the green wire that we reconnect is going to be the input wire. So I'm going to reconfigure the RF wiring now using taps 8 as my output and tap 5 as my input. So I've reconfigured my RF wiring here as per figure 2-9 in the ATU manual. The blue wire is now connecting back to the capacitor bank. The green wire is reconnected to the input of my matching transformer, which we determined is tap 5. My red wire is connected to the output of my matching transformer, which is tap 8. So that's all connected up properly. Now I'm going to press the tune setup button to remove the tune setup light. It's important to note that when you have your wiring configured like this, you must ensure tune setup is turned off. We only use tune setup during the tuning process, which we are now hopefully done. I'm going to turn my transmitter back on and then let the system tune up. Now, it might take a minute or so, but the ATU should tune, so the L tuning and R tuning both go to normal. Now you can see I'm looking at forward power here and it's showing 0. If I look at my transmitter, it's giving me an output network alarm. I'm going to have to decrease power from my transmitter because it'll tune quicker without the transmitter protecting itself from high SWR. So I've reduced the power to about 30 watts. And you can hear the R tuning motor it's actually increasing right now. The L tuning is now decreasing, so we'll just give it a little second and it should tune up. The R tuning has reached the max limit, but that's okay. L tuning is showing decrease and it's still tuning up, so. Okay, I see my forward power is down close to 0 again, so I'm going to increase it up. I'm only at 3, 5, 7. We'll increase it back up to 20 watts. The reason the transmitter power is changing is because the transmitter is a voltage source, so as we change our load, the actual power changes. So you will find when you're tuning an ATU, you got to keep an eye on the forward power, because if you have no forward power, the ATU of course will not tune. Okay, now the L tuning and R tuning both say normal. The L tuning's flicking a bit because it's just on the edge, but that's okay. Do that to get rid of that light. So now we have about 25 watts. I'm going to increase power just to, it's 40 watts or so. And we'll see the reflected power is 0. Forward power is at 40 watts. So now we've tuned the ATU. The only remaining step is to turn the transmitter off and to verify that the ATU R matching and L tuning is in the mid-tune position. And this is also covered as the last stage in your ATU tuning procedure. So that covers tuning the ATU-HP. If you have any questions or comments on this video, please email support@nautel.com. Thank you very much.